So I remember I saw this ad on YouTube, actually. It was for a laundry detergent made by a Chinese company. And they featured a black man and a Chinese woman. They featured a black man and a Chinese woman, and she seduced him and put him into the washing machine. Anyway, when he came out, he was a healthy, very pale-looking Chinese man. So I remember that just being one of the most racist commercials I've ever seen.
I feel like the mainstream can only handle one racism at a time. The big thing that happened, the front page of the internet, the most likes, the most hashtags, the most rallies all around the world. There's more to it than just BLM.
There's an example I have in my childhood where I'd been called afakasi, which in Samoan means half caste. And basically, half caste is a slang word for biracial kids, mainly white and Polynesian. But it basically translates to half pure, which is incredibly incorrect, because I don't understand how somebody can be half pure for being two races. Just purely that, when they don't even know the human. So it clearly just doesn't make any sense.
It's hard as a white man to speak to the problem of brown on brown racism, but I can speak about perhaps the white version would be something like if you take a stance that supports the plight of people of colour, there can be some stigma attached to that, like you're almost like you're betraying white people if you step out of your, the white comfort bubble and are supportive of people who are struggling.
So I am half Indonesian, half Australian. And I remember in year 12 being pinned up against the wall by my neck by a half Egyptian, half Italian boy and told to go back to my own country. I said, "Hey, where were you born?" He said, "Italy." I said, "Great, I was born down the road." Like, what's the difference?
Why this racism? Well, it's been around for a while. I've seen it growing up. I've seen it, people that I know in my family. I've seen it with like other cousins, friends, Chinese people calling us names, us being discriminatory to the Asians. There's so many different facets of it that I've seen growing up, and look, I've been racist myself. Only last year when things were really tough and couldn't go out and play and do shows, I got really frustrated and had that thought in my mind. I don't mean harm by it, but it happens.
I get a lot that I don't look Arab. I get Greek, I get Italian. One time I got Indigenous. But this one time I remember I was in a change room in David Jones or somewhere in Westfield, and these women came in and they saw me and they started to talk about me in Arabic, not knowing that I actually am fluent in Arabic. And it was just really rude. It was about what I looked like and what I was wearing or something. I think she called me a cow or something. I can't remember what it was, but it was in Arabic, and they didn't realise that I spoke Arabic because I don't look it, or I don't have the typical features. And I remember responding to them in Arabic and telling them, you should watch what you say because you never know. And the look, they were quite shocked, actually, look on their faces, yeah.
I feel like a few of us have been living this undercurrent of racism, like the long distance runner of racisms. Nothing big enough has happened for everyone to have a look at it yet, but we get peppered, and it's not an even playing field. People think it is, but it's not an even playing field.
Growing up, I remember being told not to stay out in the sun for too long because as a brown woman, you don't ever want to get darker. We're told that we look dirty when we're darker. And this is something that I've had to confront within myself. I've had to dismantle, and I've had to bring attention to a lot of other black women around me. They don't realise, we don't realise that we have this point of view, you know, don't stay out in the sun too long, you don't want to get too dark. So that's been, really eye-opening.
Someone can say something disparaging to me as a white person. They can call me anything. They call me cracker, say that I have mayonnaise on everything, say I put sultanas in salads or whatever, anything. You can get really, as a white man especially, you can cop a lot of insults, and I can be personally offended, but I still live in an ecosystem that is where I am on the top of the food chain, you know. So how can I really ever be offended? So if I take a position as a white guy who I want to even the playing field, I would love everyone to have exactly the same advantages for a lot of different reasons. Just because morally that's the right thing to do first, of course, but also I'm competitive. I don't want to win at anything because I have advantage. I want the playing field to be even, and so it just makes it makes the whole game of life fair, you know, and everybody gets what they get based on their merits and their efforts. That seemed to make a lot of sense to me.
This is my favorite. Whenever I go back to Indonesia to visit my aunties and uncles and cousins, my auntie always says to my mom, "Why is she so dark? Why is Amy so dark? She looks just like the servants." So when you're there, if you're of dark skin, you are the poor people in Indonesia. And it is the light-skinned people that are the rich and the well-to-do. And it's just, but then in Australia, like everyone wants to be dark. And then I get asked, "Hey, you got fake tan on?" I'm like, "No, it's real. This is my skin. I'm not asking you about your skin."
This racism exists, and it needs to be brought up, because, you know, there's the mainstream racism, and, you know, I have all empathy towards that, but then we're like the underdogs. We're like the cult underground racism that people don't really bring up and talk about. But the thing is, once the mainstream goes, there's still going to be the underground that's going to come up the rise. So if we don't suppress it now, then we don't know how much out of control it's going to get. So it's definitely there, and that's why I think this racism needs to be discussed.
Actually, one of my very first boyfriends' serious relationship was a true blue Aussie. And I actually experienced racism from his parents. Like, his mum was quite racist towards me for being an Arab, and just never understood, you know, the way that I dressed, you know, the things that I ate, the places that I took him, you know, to experience my culture. I remember he went to my sister's wedding, and, you know, Arab weddings are one big party with drums and the flute, and it's very cultural and it's very rich in its culture. And I just remember her just not understanding and kind of like making fun of it. It was quite, she mocked me a lot for it.
The closest thing we as white people have to racism within the white culture would be something like, you know, how the British speak about the Irish, or how, you know, white Australians speak about white New Zealanders or something like that. It's more classism or elitism. It looks and smells a bit more like that. It's very, very difficult for a white person to actually feel any kind of racism.
My parents are completely different. My mum's brown and my dad's white. None can really, I can't really relate to either of them fully, because my mum, I will never experience that amount of racism, yet with my dad I won't experience that amount of white privilege. And that's just what I've got. That's what a lot of us mixed kids have got. And we get the same thing, you know, you're not white enough, you're not brown enough. And it's just a general thing, but honestly, we all have the same blood in us, and we all have the same ancestors behind us. We just came out looking different. And it's not different, it's just us. but it just doesn't make sense. We are just human, and we should just act to each other like we're human. And it generally doesn't seem logical. Well, not at all.
It's never going to hurt to pick up a book and read. Just being brown or just being different in a minority doesn't mean that you are already educated. We all need to do the work, and we have to dismantle all the prejudice that we have within ourselves. So I definitely think educating yourself. Why, historically, has it been set up like this? And where do we fit in? And then how can we be an ally? How can we help?
I've spoken to a few friends about this, and I've always believed culture moves in inches. It's very slow. We might not be around by the time what the ideal world we want to be in realizes itself.
I think we have to own our stories. So share our stories. Because as soon as we share our stories, we own our stories. They're our stories. And no one else can tell them, because that makes us the author of our life. So share your stories. Talk about it. No, people don't understand this. Talk about it.
Okay, how can we help? Well, we can help by recognizing it, first of all, knowing that it is a problem, bringing it up the ranks. There's a lot of platforms, there's social media platforms, that you can raise awareness of this topic. But more important for me personally is stand up, standing up for it when you see it happening, because it does happen. And it might not be the usual white person versus the dark person. It could be an Italian versus the dark person, or a Greek versus an Indian. Stand up for that. If you see it, stand up, make a difference, because that is how it can help. And also this video is helping. Me talking to you right now is helping, making awareness. My good friend Dre, his song "I'm a Racist" that sparked this conversation. These are the things that we all have the power to do. So let's do it.
I think the first thing is just to listen. I think learning to listen to everybody will be the first step, and hearing everybody's stories. Everybody's got their own experiences, and they come from a completely different place than you do. So
The answer to racism is a complex one, but as a father of a mixed race child, and he's a little beautiful brown boy. He just happens to be brown, and he's. I want a world where the playing field is even. I want him to have access to resources, access to power, access to knowledge, just the same as anyone else.
So, and then, having those conversations with the people around us, and if we can just remain empathetic, we're never going to get anywhere talking down to somebody or talking at somebody, but we can reach a place of understanding. If we let them talk, we talk. So I think that, empathy and educating yourself is the way to go.
Cool wasn't set by a certain race. You just got to be you and speak your truth and form your truth, shape your truth. And if you're not around to, when that realizes itself, maybe someone else down the line does.
I guess we just all have to learn from each other. We have to treat each other like humans. Within you got to treat each other for their soul before their race and their body and their ancestry, because honestly, that's what our ancestors have given us, but we choose what we get to do with the body and our culture and everything. So I don't understand why people can purely just judge based off the body when it's not even theirs, and they don't get to judge somebody like that. So my suggestion would to be to learn from everybody and to treat each other like humans. from soul to soul, because we don't know how long we'll be here for. So I suggest that we should just be kind to each other and learn from each other. And when we go, we're going to know that we made a difference and we learnt from our brothers and sisters and everybody, and we made a difference and we loved each other instead of hated each other.